Hello, welcome to the Combat Chats podcast. This week we're going to be talking about the previous week's main card, the Fight Night in Paris between Garn and Tudor, as well as the upcoming UFC 279 card. Should be really interesting. Anyway, Finn, if you would like to start us off.
Yeah, so first fight on the card we had the Englishman, which we were both looking forward to. Charles Jourdain fought Nathaniel Wood, which I didn't actually realise this fight was on this card until like a week beforehand. So yeah, to see Wood obviously going back, he's back up. I think it only took 6 weeks off after UFC London. Was it UFC London he fought at? I think it was. He obviously only took a few weeks off after his big win, and yeah, to see him back in there after having a long way out and to look as clean and as good as he did against such like a found striker in the UFC was good to see. A lot of the fight played out in the clinch. They're both dirty boxing, landing lots of nice shots on the inside, but the main factor in this for me was Nathaniel Wood really making it an MMA fight, and he switched up his grappling with his striking beautifully. He's got one of the best pull counters in the UFC in my opinion. The way he just slips past a jab or right hand and will just counter straight back with his own straight right is an art form in itself, that counter. So yeah, great performance. The wrestling really impressed me. What were your thoughts on this one?
I have to agree. I thought he was looked really good. Charles Jourdain, he's a very good striker, very well established. He's got some really nice kicks.
Mm,
He's a hard fighter to fight against on the feet. But as you said, with his countering, I felt like he was very patient.
yeah,
He wasn't necessarily rushing it at all. And he just looked really calm and composed. And his wrestling as well, I mean, it really did, benefit him well. I don't think he didn't look exactly necessarily overly exciting, but the explosiveness and what he did. And as I said about the counter, he was just so patient and calm and composed. And he's countering perfectly. He played out how he should. It was really interesting. Funny enough, you said like the UFC London, what was it, Blades as Spaniel?
mm.
Like he's fought very recently.
Who did he fight on that card again?
I think Charles Rosa.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, and that one was a perfect example of the pull counter again. He pieced him up so bad in that fight. So yeah, he looked just as good. He was getting hit with some big shots early, and he really bit down on the mouth guard, and he was willing to. Although he was looking for that big counter shot, he was also willing at points to really dig in. And when they were both head to head in the clinch, and there were body shots and both digging uppercuts upstairs. For me, it was probably one of the best fights on the whole card. I really enjoyed this one, and it was great to see Wood get his hand raised. Obviously, he had a lot of time off. He had a couple hard losses as well. I think he lost to Casey Kenny and Dodson, but I could be wrong on one of them. But
I think Dodson would have been one of his like earlier fights in the UFC. I think
yeah,
it might be the second or so, but yeah, no, to fought against the vet. To be fair,
mm,
John Dodson.
yeah, and Dodson can knock anyone out when he. I think Wood was winning that fight and he just got caught. And then Casey Kenny was looking very good up until the Dominic Cruz fight, and he beat him in that run. So yeah, it's two losses where it can happen to any good up and comer. Obviously, Nathaniel the prospect Wood, he's finally coming into that nickname now, and I think although the one thing going for him is Charles Jourdain isn't the biggest of featherweights, and he still looked rather small compared to Jourdain, but I mean the strength factor didn't. If anything, he was the stronger guy. He didn't dominate the fight, but I think early on I thought it was looking a bit dicey, but by the end he clearly took over the fight and just landed the bigger shots. I think that was the biggest point as well. The takedowns and the few bigger shots he landed, and yeah, I was very impressed with him. I think he can be a top contender in this featherweight division.
I think the wrestling was probably the most impactful tool he used. I'd say.
Yeah,
His
definitely.
his countering was brilliant, but Charles Jourdain, he hits hard, he hits clean. He's also very, very explosive, and he's throwing good variety strikes. And Charles Jourdain, I mean, I believe French,
Yeah, French Canadian in it.
French Canadian, which is I'm interested that obviously it's UFC Paris, you have quite a few French fighters.
Mm.
But yeah, no, I mean he looked very, very impressive, and it's good to see a lot of French fighters come up on the scene. But yeah, overall it was a very, very good fight. Relatively contentious. I think a lot of fights in this card were, to be fair.
Yeah,
I wouldn't,
they're very competitive, a lot of the fights.
I wouldn't say there may have been like one or two which weren't quite, But for the most part, they were just very, very competitive.
Hmm.
But anyway, if we move on to the next one,
Yeah, so next time in, sorry, we had William Gomis against Jamal Aaron's, would you say? But this was a good fight. The striking, it looked like Aaron's was kind of the bigger, more powerful striker, but Gomes was really sitting back, waiting to counter. He every time he did throw it, looked like they were damaging shots. Like he'd throw some wild kicks in there, and he landed a nice uppercut at one point. But yeah, I think Aaron's will look back at this and be disappointed with his performance because I felt like it was a fight he could have really put his foot on the gas and maybe won because obviously there was moments I think he rocked him with a straight right or straight left, and then he sort of dipped down into a head kick but didn't really put the pressure on after that. And I think Gomes is a very good fighter. Obviously, he won the fight by mostly grappling. He'd stay on the feet and they'd trade, and then near the end of the round he'd take him down and dominate the position for a lot of it. But yeah, I don't have loads to say on this fight. It wasn't the most exciting, but then again, it was Gomez's debut in France. It's a big occasion to step up, and I think in the next few fights we'll really see him bite down on the mouthpiece and go forward a bit more, which I'm excited for because he looked like a big. His slipping and head movement was very good as well. His defense was really good. What were your thoughts on this fight?
so I think with Aaron and whatnot, it's a hard one because when you're fighting someone who's fighting like Gomez, debut in Paris, France, where he's from,
Mm,
Paris born,
yeah.
or Paris, fighting out of Paris anyway, at least. Uh, it was a very impressive performance, and he looked very interesting. Just in in his variety, he looks like he has a very much a varied skill set,
Mm,
and obviously with it being his first fight and whatnot, it's always hard to tell because a lot of fighters they'll have a really top first fight, and then obviously you don't know how they're going to be, throughout the remainder of their time in the UFC.
I
But
mean, Johnny Walker, who we'll be talking about later, look how he started in the UFC, and
yeah,
it can go downhill at any moment. But it was a strong start.
but yeah, no, definitely. So I thought his kicks were like sick,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, he did some. I mean, his body kicks were very, very good. The head kicks he couldn't really land, but the techniques he was using, he used the jumping switch kick at one point, and
Yeah.
it's just we see Derek Lewis using that one a lot too. It's just a very dangerous kick, and when you're throwing things out there, it's very hard to read what you're going to do. But for me, the most impressive thing was his head movement because he wasn't active enough to show how skillful he really was, in my opinion. But you could see how comfortable he was being in range and having people throw shots at you, and you need to have that in the UFC. We've seen so many fighters come through and been like, if you're frightened to get hit, fighting fighters in the UFC, they're going to hit you at some point. So yeah, he was very calm. Just slipping out of range, like very closely. Everything was just sort of rolling away from him. I was very impressed with his head movement.
I felt like he was quite explosive though. Like
Definitely.
with his takedowns, just when he did go forward,
Mm,
I felt like he was quite active throughout the entire fight. I know you said that you said that he wasn't quite as as aggressive as you might have liked to have seen, but when he did, he was very
mm,
effective in doing so.
yeah.
And I think that when you're fighting like that, it's it's hard to really combat unless you're because I mean worst comes to worst, he's taking you down.
Mm,
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's there's not really a lot you can necessarily do about, all you can do is maybe, have a good takedown defense and stop that momentum. But just that amount of pressure, I thought it looked really, really impressive. It's interesting. What are they like featherweights, do you say?
Yeah, no, I
They might
don't.
be, I think they might be
I think
lighter than
they're
that.
bigger than that, aren't they?
Bigger?
Yeah, I think
They
so.
didn't look massive to be fair,
No, they
did
are
they?
featherweights, yeah.
Featherweights, yeah, because I know that they're like 6 foot and like 5'11", or
Mm.
I think
Six
Johnny
foot's a
Aaron's.
big featherweight.
Yeah, yeah, maybe I've got that completely wrong to be fair.
Well, you got the weight class right anyway, so.
But yeah, yeah, no. Looking at the height, I'm interested to see because I felt like for featherweights they looked like they were quite light.
But yeah, like it was a okay fight. Like if you look at the stats, the striking stats, none of them threw an overwhelming amount. It was a lot of like feeling out, feinting. I was impressed with Aaron's power. Like when he did go forward, I feel like I was kind of just waiting for him to land a big shot at times. I felt like watching it live. So yeah, it was an interesting one. So yeah, I'd like to see Gomez fight again and really show his whole skill set.
I mean, it'd be very interesting to see. It'd be very interesting to see. 6 foot and 5'11".
Jeez, yeah.
So, yeah, but yeah, not massive guys in bulk wise, but I mean, never really been a massive guy, bulk wise
Yeah.
at featherweight, but yeah, no, yeah, very interesting to see. I'm looking forward to the future. Ernest as well. I mean, obviously,
Just-
there's a lot more to see of him as well. I think
Mm,
I really do, and
yeah.
he's a powerful guy.
Mm.
Like he's very powerful at division. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see how they look in the future.
Yeah, so getting us on to the next one, we had Aliso Desherico versus Roman Kopylov. It was a very good fight. Do you want to get what were your thoughts on this one?
So this one, I can't remember how we called it exactly, but I remember I said that I think that they're fairly similar fighters. Both relatively inactive. Kopylov maybe being a bit more powerful. Jericho, he was the one. It was is it the head kick?
Yeah, but against Buckley.
Buckley, he also fought on this card. Now with Jericho, he's it's interesting because he's good technically and he's got some nice leg kicks, but I just feel like he's never really active enough.
Mm.
It's almost like he's always waiting for the counter, or he's not static, but he's not really active enough. He's always kind of counter striking,
Yeah.
or he's always on the outside. And I feel like with Kopylov, he's very powerful. It might have been would that have been the only or one of the only finishes in the card. Whitaker, that was
No,
that was decision, wasn't it? Decision. Yeah.
Obviously, the Garn fight was the finish.
Yeah, the Garn fight. Yeah, got him mixed up. Cool, but yeah, no. Anyway, yeah, Kopylov, is a very powerful guy. Both show good technical striking.
Mm.
But I feel like with Kopylov, he was just a bit more on it really.
Mm.
I thought he was very aggressive pushing forward,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's something Jericho he's just not very good at coping with
I
at all.
think Kopylov was doing very well. He was pushing him back. At times it seemed like he was kind of mirroring him just to kind of cut off Jericho's weapons, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So like he was pushing him against the cage, and he was always looking to get his straight right in first, and it was blasting through Jericho's guard, and obviously the finish happened with that, and then he just barraged him with a few hooks, I think. But there was many times where he has a very snappy right hand, and he was just getting it through the middle. He cut off the octagon very well as well. And obviously that helps if you're a finisher and you're looking to get big finishes like he did. You've got to be able to cut off the octagon with someone who likes to move and sort of counter as much as Jericho, because although Jericho hasn't done the best in the UFC, obviously we saw Buckley pushing him back and walk right into a head kick, so he is a dangerous fighter. And I think I saw a tweet that he retired after that fight because how much he's been struggling. So yeah, respect to him. He's put on a lot of good fights for UFC fans. Not been the winner of a lot of them, but that KO of Buckley, I think it was just after Buckley did that jumping spin kick as well against Kasangana, and straight after that to head kick him. He kind of stole the hype a bit, and I think that maybe just weighed on his shoulders a little bit, and yeah, he struggled since then. But yeah, it was a very good fight. It was a good one to watch, and obviously Kopylov got the finish, which isn't good to see, but everyone likes to see the finish in these fights.
It was a good performance for Kopylov, it really was.
Yeah.
I feel like with Jericho, as you said about the stealing the hype and whatnot. With Jericho, I feel like there's always that potential there, but I just don't feel like he does what he needs to do.
Yeah,
He just doesn't make the right decisions when he's fighting. He doesn't. I don't know whether it's his game plan or whether that's just how he fights the fighter. Some fighters are just like that.
yeah,
Some fighters are very much rigid in their fighting style and how they like to fight. And I feel like a lot of the time, as a fighter, that will just plateau you, as we're seeing a lot of divisions. But with the Jericho, I feel like with what he's got, maybe that's just how it is. I mean, I feel like even with Marvin Vettori, for example, there are lots of gaps which prevent him from potentially, progressing further up, although he is very, very high in that division. And obviously, I think, was Adesanya, is he got beat to be
Yeah.
champion. You know, it's not many people doing that. I feel like with Jericho, I just don't feel like he's gonna ever really do the right thing. You know, or really ever use the right set of tools and go about the right ways to get to where he needs to be.
Yeah, I do agree. I think it's a shame because I remember even when he base planted Buckley and we saw Buckley's chin, and we'll be getting into that later because it's not an easy thing to do. So he had all the skills. It kind of, not with the same skill set, but it kind of reminds me with the Uriah Hall situation where he seemed like he could have all the access and opportunity to really rise in the rankings and do something, but there's certain things that didn't allow him to, and it's a shame to see, but it is what it is. It's the UFC. It's elite fighters around every corner, and when you're fighting them, there's always going to be a loser in there. So yeah, it's just a shame. It was usually Jericho.
Unfortunately, so anyway, moving on to the next one, if you will.
Yeah. So the next one on the card was. It was actually the one I was just mentioned, which was Nasruddin
Imavov.
Imavov against Jaquan Buckley, and I really enjoyed this fight. Nasruddin, I'm just gonna call him that. He was he was straight away trying to like assert his authority. He was walking forward. He was playing a lot of mind games. Um, Very big guy. Like they look like they were two different like a weight class apart. Buckley's a short, stocky guy, but Nasruddin looked a lot bigger and stronger, and the grappling exchanges kind of proved that. He's a very calm, patient striker as well. Like the way he was kind of setting up his left hand with his hands low, Buckley was finding it very hard to find the range. I think it doesn't help that Buckley just explodes into shots every time. Like he doesn't have the fundamentals. He doesn't jab his way in much. He just kind of jumps in with right, left hands. But yeah. Before we really dig into it, what was your first thoughts on this fight?
I mean, it's an awkward one, really. As you said about the size difference, you could definitely tell there was a significant difference between the two of them. As you say, you know, Buckley's a very short and stocky guy. Uh, I mean, Ivanov, he's, he looked. How do you know how tall he is?
I don't. Yeah,
I
I'll get
don't
it
know if he's
on.
mega tall, but he's a bit taller than Buckley,
I'll get it up.
like quite a bit. But yeah, no, I'm just looking at the size difference. Buckley was always going to have issues with it, and as you said about the fundamentals, it's a hard one really because I feel like even using my jab to get into that, I mean, he was just bullying really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I wouldn't say it was necessarily super dominant. It was still quite contentious, but I think with a fight like that, it's always going to be hard when you're fighting somebody who's that much taller.
He's 6'3".
6 foot. Oh wow. Okay. And what's Buckley just out of interest?
Buckley, I think he's like 5. What is he? 5?
5'10".
Yeah, something like that.
But regardless, you know, 4 inch difference, that's a massive difference. And even if you're looking, you know, stature wise, like obviously, you know, Buckley's a very stocky guy. Just that height difference, you know, and in the grappling exchanges, when you've got someone that much taller than you, who is very good at grappling, it's always an awkward one, really. I feel like he did very well, technically,
Yeah,
just with his striking,
definitely.
you know, and I feel like it was always going to be an issue.
Buckley's 5'8" against
Five-
6'3".
5'8", what's 6 inches difference?
Yeah,
Is that 6
yeah.
inches?
I'm not doing much. I'm not paying for that.
It's around. Wait, sorry. So how tall's
6. I think he's 6'3" in my above.
so 6 inches difference?
Yeah.
So 6 inches difference. That's like a subway. You know what I mean?
It's a good old subway on top of his.
On top of his noggin. But yeah, no.
What are you talking about?
I just feel like it's a massive difference, and I feel like that as well as just the strength he showed. Whenever there was a grappling exchange, but Buckley, he's not going to come out on top. Whenever there's, you know, a striking range, I mean, the range you're going to have when it's 6 inches, you're going to have a hard time getting in there unless you're going to start flying in. And flying in didn't work.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit because that third round, Imavov, there was some dicey moments for him because Buckley sort of weathered the storm. Imavov started slowing down a little bit. You could tell like he looked a bit tired, and Buckley started landing big shots. And I think the size difference alone kind of helped Imavov take shots because we've seen Buckley knock plenty of people out with the same shots he was landing. and he was sprawling on the takedowns. If that was a 5 round fight, I think I would have went Buckley in that one if they went the distance. And it's a big like hat in his feather cap in his big feather in his cap to be able to just go at that pace with Imavov, such a bigger guy, and really like by the end of that fight he earned his respect because at the start he didn't have it. It seemed like it was a very good fight, and I just feel like people made it out like something it wasn't.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like if you were to look at, unanimous decision, correct?
Hmm.
But to look at the fight, it wasn't pure dominance.
No.
He did at times. I use the word bully. I don't know if that's correct,
The first
but
round and a half he did bully
it
Buckley.
it, it was just more a matter of just the physicality. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And you're always gonna struggle. But yeah, it's a good point to make about 5 round fights. I think that a lot of these fights, the additional 2 rounds can make a big difference.
Definitely. They're
So,
called championship rounds for a reason. Like,
exactly. So some people have the mustard to go the 5. Some people don't. Some people can do it in 3. Some people can do it in 5. So some people who might be able to finish an opponent in 3 isn't making it to the 5th.
yeah.
And I think that definitely has a big impact. And when you're getting worn out, if you're so used to fighting, because a lot of these fighters, a lot of fighters won't ever really have a 5 round fight in the UFC, just because they're not making
Yeah.
it there. You know what I mean?
I think we could see Buckley and Amovev take both having fight. I think they're both very talented fighters. Like, I'm excited to see where they go in the future.
It would be interesting to see. It's also contentious though,
Mm.
a massive thing. But regardless, there's still a lot of time,
Yeah.
so it would be interesting. But yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was generally quite a good fight. It's unfortunate for Buckley, really. Matchup wise, you're matched up against who you're matched up against.
I mean, he jumped straight from fighting non-ranked guys to fighting the guy 12 in the world who's on a very good run. So,
is Buckley ranked yet?
no, Buckley's unranked.
Unranked.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fair play. Like
It's a big step up in competition.
definitely so. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was unfortunate, to have had the fire city difference, but it's just how the UFC is.
Mm.
I feel like you look at a lot of these taller fighters, a lot of people they either don't know how to fight them or they just can't.
Mm.
And that's the thing. And I feel like height's one of the major things which is underestimated. I feel like, you look at a lot of these light divisions and whatnot, the taller guys, obviously they have very, very good technical ability. And I'm not going to use Max Holloway as an example because that would be so like backward.
Mm.
It's all to do with his technical ability. But we look at a lot of the fighters who are maybe 3 or 4 inches taller.
Sandhagen.
Sandhagen,
Like,
exactly.
people find it so hard. Like, see, we've seen what Dillashaw has done to people in the past, and how hard Dillashaw found to get in Sandhagen's range without getting pieced up before he got there. It like there's certain examples in fights where like anyone fighting John Jones is just a nightmare to get in on him. So like height is definitely a big factor. In MMA, I don't think people are as good as using it yet in boxing because how new of a sport MMA is. It's like boxing's been around for so long. Like there's so many different variations of fighters that have come through that you can study. With MMA, I feel like we're just getting to the point now where you're getting perfect MMA fighters, and maybe not even now. Like that could be a few years down the line. Yeah, how many perfect boxers have you seen?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a good point to make about that. I think with MMA and boxing, there's 2 key differences, and that is just the amount of variables which
Yeah,
you can
definitely.
throw and defend against, and
Definitely.
just what you can do in MMA in contrast to what you can do in boxing. With boxing, obviously, it's more than just punching and slipping and all of that. But it gets to a point in which there's very much. I feel like with boxing, it's almost relatively clear what works well, what doesn't.
Yeah.
MMA, we don't know that. We're seeing a lot of good wrestlers come through, and obviously, I know that it's been spoken about for a while. That wrestling is probably one of the most beneficial, but at the same time, we're also seeing fighters of other disciplines coming through.
Yeah, like
And
elite strikers with elite takedown defense and stuff like
and that's the thing. But fighters like for example, the Gamrot
that.
fight,
Yeah,
Sakarian,
and Taiyukin, yeah.
Sakarian,
Yeah.
whatever it may be, whatever it
Yeah,
may be.
they're all right when you, yeah.
But yeah, no, looking at the two elite wrestlers, just doing very, very well against each other through their use of wrestling. And we look at a lot of the top UFC fighters and a lot of the different divisions, with the exception of maybe one or two divisions that almost primarily dominated by wrestlers.
Yeah.
We look at your Usmans.
Yeah.
We look at your Makashevs and
yeah, and then you see, I think you can probably say middleweight and heavyweight are the only ones that, because even if you look at lightweight and stuff like that, there's a lot of dominant wrestlers who you'd say, all right, these guys can be champion the next, like Islam Makhachev is probably the favourite against Charles Oliveira. I don't actually know the betting lines, but it just shows like there's always an up and coming grappler who you just think, oh, they'll beat the champion in these divisions. We thought that with, I mean, a lot of people thought that even with Usman when he was fighting Tyron Woodley, and Tyron Woodley was a good wrestler himself. Shamaev now, I'm sure if Shamaev beats Diaz and Leon King win against Usman again, people are going to favour Shamaev against Leon Edwards. I'd be shocked if Leon was the favourite in that fight.
I mean, just look at how dominant Cejudo was.
Yeah.
When he was in the UFC.
To be fair, that is because he learnt to strike as well, though. He struck with some of the best. But yeah, it still goes. With middleweight, Izzy's cleared out all the wrestlers basically.
Yeah. But I feel like that then comes back to height.
Yeah.
Because if you notice, obviously there are some tall middleweights, but Izzy's just so tall. You like Cannonier, for example. Obviously, I don't think Cannonier necessarily looked poor in that fight. He didn't look great, but I just don't think there's a lot he could have really done. The most effective he was when he was in the clinches. And that's it already. He's just not able to get into that range very often.
And the thing is with Izzy as well, it's like you can get. He's taller than a lot of these guys. He's like 6'2" or something like that, 6'1", and he's one of the best kickboxers in the world. So like his distance management is probably the best. I'd probably say it's the best the UFC's ever had. Someone managing distance and range and always knowing where to be to not get hit. He's probably the best at it. So. It's him and John Jones as well. It's very similar. And the heavyweights just don't have much grapplers in it, like in the higher rankings. Like Curtis Blades is the only one. Ngannou's just a nightmare to beat for anyone. So
I feel like with heavyweights, one of the reasons why there might not be as many grapplers is because I think a lot of it comes down to the power and whatnot. I think with, your lightweights, your middleweights, obviously they all have knockout power. But with the heavyweights, there's always that potential for that, that one-punch knockout. There is in the other divisions as well, mind. Obviously it becomes less prominent as you go down lower and lower. Definitely. But I feel like, as a wrestler, when you're fighting against people who can hit very hard, shooting for a takedown isn't always the best idea. Not unless you're very, very slick with it. And although we have a few heavyweights who are, very fast and very explosive, a lot of them just aren't explosive enough to avoid that strike.
I think that's why Curtis Blades is having a lot more success now as well, because even in the Derek Lewis fight, he was winning on the feet quite comfortably in the first round, and he kind of rushed the takedown. And now you see him. Obviously, he was willing to exchange with Aspinall early on until obviously it was like seconds in, but you could see Curtis Blades was looking for the chin in that fight. And when he beat Carl Darkus, I think, or Chris, it's one of the brothers, like. Getting mixed up, but so you can see how comfortable he is on the feet, and that's why he's so high up in these heavyweight rankings. But Ngannou's been able to fight a lot of these wrestlers and just fucking drag them off him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Instead of using technique.
Well, that's the thing, and I think it's a good point you made about Cejudo. Learn to strike. You can be a top wrestler, but you also need to be able to strike. I think there's quite a few Khabib brothers, aren't there?
Yeah. Could be families.
Or could be family. They're like, what was it, the Nurmagomedov or whatever it may be.
Obviously they have Saeed in Bellator, who's insane. If you haven't watched him, people need to go watch that kid because he's spinning, kicking people and stuff and got the grappling to back it up. And then, there's a lot. Umar as well.
So with Umar, what interests me about him is that Umar looks very good on the feet. His kicks are amazing.
An excellent kicker.
And I feel like with Umar, with his kickboxing, with his ability on the feet, combined with his wrestling, because obviously all of their wrestling is elite level.
Mm.
It's all very, very high standard wrestling. I feel like that is kind of when wrestling becomes elite, when you
Yeah.
have that and you can put it all together.
Mm.
And I think Takarian as well. You said he could be a top 5 fighter.
Yeah,
I agree. So could Gamrot, to be fair.
yeah. Gamrot's probably close now, and he's getting a big fight next. I don't know who he'll fight next, but I reckon it'll be a big fight. But yes, them two especially, they really showed how good they were at striking in their fight together.
And that's the thing. I feel like you piece it all together. That's what you want. It's hard, but as you said, with MMA, going back to height, it's just we don't really know what the best way to go about it is yet. And it'd be really interesting to constantly involved in sport. We're seeing new moves and new techniques used constantly.
Yeah.
And some of them are looking effective, some are looking really ineffective. But it's really interesting, it's really exciting, and it would be interesting to see how it changes. I do feel like height at the moment is just such a big factor.
Especially if they're good at using it. Because there's a lot of tall people. We're talking about Macy Chasson. I've kind of had a problem with her fighting style for a while because how bigger she is than a lot of these people. But yeah, if you know how to use height in MMA, then you're onto a winner already. And it's dangerous for jiu-jitsu as well. If you're good off your back and you got these long limbs, it's dangerous.
So advantageous, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so anyway, getting back onto the card, we'll wrap this card up and then we'll get into next week's one. So the next fight was the co-main event. We had Whitaker against Vettori, and Whitaker just doing what Whitaker does. What was your thoughts on this one?
So it's interesting. You say Whitaker doing what Whitaker does. I also think we could say Vettori doing what Vettori does. I think Vettori, I think he's a good fighter, but I feel like there are just so many barriers which hold him back. And I feel like with him, he's just very much stuck in a certain way, which I feel like he's just so good technically, and he's got some great knees. He's got some great striking over him. His jiu-jitsu is insane. But I feel like with just the way he goes about his fights, he's such a headhunter. He throws the jab continuously, and it's really good that he's using this jab, but he's not using it right. He's not always using it to get space. He's often throwing the jab to just hump the head, and any fighter which has good head movement and is able to manage distance, like so a Whitaker, for example, you're not really able to do much with it. He's got some good kicks. I know earlier on before this, he said that he had some nice body kicks. And he's got some good leg kicks as well. He is good at using his range, but he doesn't really get in on it.
Yeah, I do get what you mean, but I also think it's kind of, you can just look and say the only people he's lost to are Robert Whitaker and Israel Adesanya.
Yeah, no, of course. But that's where it goes back to where I say it stagnates him. He's just at a plateau because he doesn't change it up. He doesn't do what he needs to do to potentially beat these guys. Whitaker looked impressive, as he said, doing what he did.
Yeah.
I feel like the issue with Marvin Vettori, Robert Whitaker, is that with Vettori, if he's gonna fight like that on the feet, fine. But he's got to be able to get him onto the ground.
Yeah.
And when you're fighting someone like Whitaker with his takedown defense
and his wrestling, he took Vettori down a couple of times too, didn't he? So.
Yeah. Standard Whitaker behavior. When you have that, it's hard. Really, it's kind of you can't really do a lot in the fight other than what he did. And I thought Whitaker looked good.
Yeah, I think Vettori even came out and said to Bisping afterwards that he felt like there was just not much he could do. Like Whitaker was just so fast, man. Like if you really do think about it, there's a lot of controversy about Whitaker's last fight with Adesanya. A lot of people think Whitaker won. I don't, because I just don't think he did enough damage. I think that more of the damage was done by Izzy. But what fighter has ever looked like they can go 5 rounds and point fight with Israel Adesanya? Like, how boring how much have we complained about Izzy's last few fights, because no one can even get near him if he just decides to point fight for 5 rounds. So Whitaker winning probably 2 rounds, maybe 3 rounds in their last fight against Israel Adesanya, just point fighting him just shows how technical he is. the stomps to the knee are brutal. Like he jumps in with that oblique leg kick, and he tore Darren Till's knee with it. And if Vittori's just made out of concrete, but if there was anyone else, I could have seen their knee going with some of them too. And then obviously the head kick he sets up is beautiful. I just think he's like the Max Holloway of this division. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he can't beat. Oh, he could beat Izzy, but I don't see him beating Izzy, and I just don't see anyone beating him. So
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think that's a really good analogy. Max Holloway with this division. You can't see anyone beating Whitaker, and you can't see Whitaker beating Izzy.
yeah,
I can't see anyone beating Izzy at all. Izzy is just kind of untouchable, and obviously, I know that a lot of people, comment on Izzy being a boring fighter. He's not the most exciting to watch at times. You'll watch him, doing in his promos, all of these cool kicks and whatnot, and like it's sick. To be fair, it is sick, but he's not doing it during fights. Obviously, it's the right thing to not be doing during his fights, because obviously he's very, very successful in doing so. But with Whitaker, I don't feel like there's necessarily a plateau in his ability. I just don't think he can beat Izzy. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that he couldn't ever potentially do so. I feel like with the Max Holloway analogy, it's perfect. The only difference is I could see Whitaker potentially being a lot closer with Izzy than Holloway. But I feel like that's just because Volk is at a point now where he's beyond next level.
Yeah.
He is probably the best fighter in the world right now, or he's side by side with Izzy. Yeah. I think that maybe it's like kind of neck and neck, who's.
But I think there's just more ways to beat Izzy. Like, I don't think there's really a way. Like, I think the only way Volk loses is if he goes up and fights someone massive compared to him. Like, Oliveira's a big guy, and everyone throws back to like, oh, he weighed 215 pounds back in the rugby days, but sorry, he's like 5 foot. I don't know how tall, but
I feel like if you look back at what he used to weigh as a rugby player, you're looking at it wrong, because he's just not a rugby player anymore.
No.
That he's been fighting for a very long time at featherweight. He's not fighting at.
The only loss he has is at welterweight.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Which is mental, really. I think with Volk, no one's beating him at featherweight. Lightweight, it could be different. It's a jump up in weight. There's very much potential for it to be different.
I mean, I think he can beat Charles Oliveira. I actually do, but I don't think he can beat Islam Makhachev.
I feel like Charles Oliveira would be a very hard fight, though.
Yeah, that's the fight I want to see most.
It would be interesting to see how it goes down, really, because it's a hard one to call. Charles Oliveira, he's very good all round, and so is Volk. It's just really a matter of how it goes down and how well Volk does on the ground, and whether he gets Volk to the ground.
Ortega snatched his neck. What's Charles going to do with his neck? Rip it off?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Makhachev would be interesting. Would be very interesting. But yeah, no, I'm going back to the Whitaker fight. I thought Whitaker looked really good, just doing what he does.
Do you think Whitaker look? Because I actually do believe Whitaker's. Usually don't see fighters getting better, but I think there's general, like, before everyone knew Whitaker's main weapons, but now he's setting things up with jabs more, and I think the third fight with Izzy is granted in my opinion, because how close that last one was. I do think Izzy won the last one, but you give Max Holloway the trilogy, you can give Robert Whitaker the trilogy. So if Izzy gets past Pereira, I think Rob deserves that next shot either way.
I'd have to agree. I feel like it's one of the only logical bouts, unless something mad happens in that division.
I think they were kind of talking about Paulo Costa fighting Whitaker, because like he's the only one Whitaker hasn't beat, basically. Like, Whitaker's beat everyone at middleweight pretty much.
See, that would be interesting, but I don't know how that would go down, because I feel like Paulo Costa, he's a different type of animal. But with how Whitaker performed, as he said, with his setting up and his just general fight IQ, Paulo Costa's an interesting one, because he's a bit of a bulldog, really.
Yeah, I think with Whitaker can be a bit chinny at times. So I think if someone's going to beat him other than Izzy in that division, it will be Paulo by just marching through him.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing with Whitaker. With Paulo Costa, even he's just very, very aggressive, and he doesn't mind getting hit.
Yeah.
You know, he's not necessarily, you know, majorly slugging it out, but he doesn't mind going towards, you know,
I think
an opponent.
we both still favour Whitaker. I know I'd still favour Whitaker in that fight, so it's been a
I
hard one with that division right now.
It's very awkward. It's very awkward. Um, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know. I
Mm.
would like to see Whitaker against Izzy again though.
Yeah, I definitely want to see that fight again.
I feel like that makes it a lot of logic. The Pereira fight that's between Izzy, I think interesting.
So excited for that fight, man. I cannot wait to just. You know what? I have watched their previous kickboxing fights before, but I cannot wait to sit down and break them down with every bit of detail I can to talk about them because it's such an intriguing matchup to me.
It's interesting to see how they're going to go about it really, because I don't know whether it be very much just a kickboxing match
Mm,
or whether it be something completely different. I mean, it's a big jump up.
yeah.
Obviously, you know, Sean Strickland's good, but Whitaker's next level. Although to be fair, Sean Strickland, I don't know what he was doing.
No, I don't think. I think that they kind of chose that matchup knowing Sean Strickland was dumb enough to just walk forward and try and strike with him.
That was very awkward to watch
Mm,
because I feel like looking at that, you could almost tell what was going to happen.
yeah.
You know, it was very much just it was almost inevitable.
Mm,
Just you know watching. But yeah, overall, you know, just quickly wrap up the Whitaker fight. I was you know maybe talking about this tomorrow. I feel like Whitaker, yeah, just looked really good. You
mm,
know, really good on the feet, really technical. Marvin Vettori couldn't really do much, and yeah, fair
yeah.
play.
So we're 40 minutes in and we haven't even got on the next week's card yet.
Mental.
There was a lot to talk about this week, but we're gonna pick up the speed a little bit. Um, so going into the main event, it was a very good fight. I enjoyed this one because I think Ty surprised a lot of us with how technical we can really be. The first round, he was cutting the octagon off very well. I still say lost it, but very close round. And Ty kind of just didn't mind playing the game with Garn, where he'd kind of stay in the pocket. He knows Garn's going to just try and keep him away at distance for the first few rounds, and he was happy to oblige and look for his openings. And he was missing, but he was coming close to the chin with a lot of big looping right hands and left hooks. So we got into the second round, and that's when the massive shot landed. And what were you thinking when Garn got knocked down with that shot? Did you think it was over?
So when you got hit by a shot, it's hard to think how someone's going to react because Taito Vaza, he's somebody who he hits very very hard.
Mm,
He hits. I mean, he's a knockout machine.
yeah,
You know, he gets a lot of KOs. You get hit by Taito Vaza, you're feeling it
yeah.
very much so.
Has he ever been to the scorecard? I don't know. Not off the top of my head, I don't think he's ever been to a decision.
I mean, surely so, surely so.
Mm,
But I know that you know he has got some brutal knockouts. I know that he's somebody who likes to. He doesn't. I don't know if he likes to get hit, but he's more than happy to do so. He's more than
mm,
happy to just walk through it. When he did get dropped, it's one of those things. I didn't know what was gonna happen really, but I mean, I thought I'm surprised he recovered. To be fair, I really
yeah,
am.
same.
Like you know, fair play, fair play.
Yeah, watching it live, I just remember thinking, oh, it's done. Ty's
Mm.
clipped in. Because how many people get up from a big shot from Ty?
Oh,
Like,
no one
no
really.
one, yeah.
Like it's just not a thing.
Mm.
But yeah, no, yeah. So I mean, anyway, yeah. So yeah, that's us.
Yeah, so obviously I'll get into the Garn looked insane when he got back up and the crowd, by the way, that was like the crowds maybe better than the crowds in the UK because they were crazy. They were like there was one point where everyone was just bouncing up and down and chanting like it was a football match. It was weird to see that in a UFC crowd and Garn was feeding off that. You could see he very aggressive after he got knocked down, which we're not used to seeing. A lot of people were complaining in the first round about how boring he was on Twitter. Anyway, you don't take much from Twitter, but a lot of people were complaining. Then he got clipped, and it's like something switched in his brain, and he just went to the work on the body. And it was one of the most brutal examples of just like destroying someone head to toe because the leg kicks, the body kicks, and then there was one point where he like fainted body kick and he did a question mark kick and kicked him right in the jaw. Sort of Tai pretended to be wobbled a bit and tried exploding afterwards, but and the uppercut was brutal. It was like a hook uppercut, sort of. The knockout punch was brutal. Garn looked very good.
Oh yeah, very much so. I have to agree. I feel like with Garn, he knows what to do and he's very technical. And the moment you said about it switching his brain, him just thinking to himself, oh, I gotta start throwing these soccer kicks. So maybe that's not the technical name for it, but they were literally like he was trying to.
He stood up and it's like he went for a volley, and
yeah, literally.
Yeah.
But I feel like that all comes down to just his fight IQ. He knew that's what he needed to do. He just got hit with a big shot. He might have been very dazed.
Yeah.
Who knows what it was, and he just knew he had to just knock the living wind out of him. And the fact that Tai Tuivasa took that many shots from Garn, but just the body shots. The fact that he still had a set of lungs afterwards was mental, really. I'm surprised one wasn't ruptured or whatever it was. But yeah, no, it was absolutely brutal, and that was definitely the right thing to have done, because that right there set everything up for the finish. Finish was beautiful and whatnot. Cyril Gane, he's so technical and he's so intelligent. I feel like Tai Tuivasa though, a lot of the time I feel like it's underestimated just how technical he actually is. I feel like a lot of people, they'll see the knockouts and all of that and they'll think, oh yeah, he's a really good heavy hitter. You know what I mean? He doesn't mind taking a punch. He's got a sick chin, but he's very, very technical in his striking.
Yeah.
I feel like at times during this fight, he did just need to calm down a little bit.
Yeah, he was just so hurt that he knew that he just.
Yeah.
What can you do when you're that hurt?
At that point, if you don't go for it, you're going.
Just gonna get finished.
I mean, even throughout, I just feel like there were times in which he was maybe potentially not fighting. He did well. He said clearing space.
He got a bit impatient at points, didn't he? Even before he got hurt badly, he was kind of getting a bit impatient. Especially when he landed that. I think this is going to sound like a weird point, but one of the worst things to happen to him in that fight was when he landed the big knockdown. Because that was the first thing that really worked for him. Obviously, it was early into the fight. But he kind of just went back to it too much. He was just trying the same combination over and over, expecting the same thing to work. And when you hit someone like Garn with a shot like that, he's not going to be stupid enough to let the same shot land again. So I think that's what, because as Garn got up, he kind of went for the sick lead in, jumping sort of rear hook, and Garn just sort of slipped, and then that's when that soccer kick came in.
Yeah.
Obviously the snap kicks were brutal, but that it was a turning kick he got hit with, but it was like a football player kicking a football.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
I think it all comes back. You said that's a good point you made about him going for it again. It all comes back to Garn's IQ.
Yeah,
he's just too intelligent to let himself get hit by that. Maybe Ty was thinking maybe he's dazed. He's not quite thinking right.
Yeah,
which is a completely plausible thought. Who knows what he was thinking? Whether he could see straight or whether it was because that was a big shot.
I mean, he said in the interview afterwards that it kind of knocked him out and he fell against the cage and the bouncing of the cage kind of woke him back up. In the air, yeah.
And that's the thing, and to be fair, it wasn't a bad idea at all. But I feel like overall, Cyril Gane just did what Cyril Gane did. He fought the fight intelligently. He threw a great variety of strikes. I think Tai Tuivasa, watching him get KO'd.
Yeah, it hurt. I didn't enjoy it.
But yeah, and not only that, he's somebody who, as of recently, has taken some massive shots. So for Cyril Gane to have done that, he's been KO'd a few times in his career.
Yeah,
which shouldn't surprise him, to be fair, because he does just love.
A lot of it was just someone. He's never been KO'd like that. He might could be wrong.
I think they're like TKOs.
Yeah, a lot of it's just him giving up his back a lot because his grappling used to be really bad. In the early days, he was like one of the worst grapplers I've ever seen. So he's sharpened up so much, and he gives a fight I'd love to see is him and Ngannou, because I think Ngannou probably does knock him out, but at the same time, if anyone's gonna land an Ngannou punch and land one straight back on Ngannou's chin, it is gonna be Tai. I think the Derek Lewis fight is kind of gone now because him and Ngannou fought before and it was terrible. But I feel like the rematch would have been like it's spicied up a lot more, but that fight's kind of down the road now, isn't it? So
Fizzled out a bit, fizzled out a bit. No, I just yeah. I mean, overall, just it's quite an insane card to watch. I thought it was. I was that the first event to be held in Paris, UFC
yeah, it
event.
was because it was
France.
MMA is literally only just become legal in Paris, hasn't it?
Yeah.
In France, so
I mean, it's quite a good night, though. To be fair, I think there's a lot of French winners.
I think six French fighters and 6 French winners. So it was 100% win rate for the French. I'm pretty sure.
I really was the
Well, Jourdain obviously lost, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
French Canadian is still Canada.
because Imavov, he's French as well, isn't he?
Yeah,
And then I think obviously Sandhagen's French as well. And
Sandhagen, and then there was that William Gomes as well. He won.
yeah, he was from Paris as well. You know, proper hyped up and whatnot. Yeah, I was impressed with all of them. To be fair, so it's interesting to see how MMA, how the UFC does look in the next 5 years with French fighters. Because if that's just fighters making their debut and top fighters, and it'd be quite interesting. You know, obviously it's not just fighters making their debut, it's still gone. But yeah, if that's just our first taste of lots of French fighters, and
The crowd as well. I mean, that's one we could go to one day because
Yeah.
it was a big arena they sold out as well. So the crowds in France are crazy. So yeah, hopefully next time out we'll try and get some tickets.
get a flight to
That'd be
France.
insane. Yeah, France isn't far for us really.
No,
Is it?
well,
So,
maybe the final was maybe the reason why he did so good was because he wasn't jet lagged. He had to get on a flight.
There was probably a lot of English there for him as well. I know there was a lot of Italians there for Vittori too. So.
Yeah, and there's Jericho as well,
Yeah,
Italian.
yeah.
So quite. It was a very much a European card.
Yeah.
Very much.
And it was so good being able to get a not a lion, an early night, sorry, instead of, I mean, this weekend I'm dreading already, 6 a.m. So
Yeah, what was it? 6 p.m.
this weekend started at 6 p.m.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
I think it started at like 5:30 in the evening. So
Oh wow, that's really nice. If only every card was like that. Don't know how many more we have in Paris, and London though. Well, not consistent anyway.
yeah, no, I mean they're gonna come a lot more, but yeah. So I think with the card coming up until we get to the sort of last 2-3-ish fights, we'll go not quick fire, but we won't spend ages breaking down these ones because obviously there was a lot to talk about last week. So Johnny Walker against Kutalaba, that for me that's a very interesting matchup because it's two fighters who have had lots and lots of ups and lots of downs. A lot of downs of recent. Obviously, when Johnny Walker came into the UFC, I remember for a long time he was the man to beat John Jones when he first came into the UFC because he hook kicked someone and then spin and back fisted him afterwards, and then there was the flying knee against Misha Serkinov. A lot of good. He knocked out Khalil Roundtree with a brutal elbow. Like his first 4 fights were all like first round finishes. So coming into UFC was a massive hype train. And Ion Kutalaba, we know he's just going to bring it every time. A lot of his fights, a lot more people get more excited for the weigh-ins because we've seen him literally paint himself green and scream in someone's face, pretending to be Hulk before. So this one for me has just got entertainment written all over it. So how do you kind of think this one's going to play out, and what's your prediction?
So it's an awkward one really. Obviously you said both of them have ups and downs. I think Kutalaba, they're both just really interesting guys. Wasn't it Johnny Walker who did one?
Yeah, dislocated shoulder.
Dislocated his shoulder.
Well, it wasn't. I think that was after the Serkinov win, after he flying kneed him.
Yeah, that's mental really. But yeah, I mean, it's a hard one really. I think it's a big fight for both of them really. I feel like Kutalaba. I'm gonna go Kutalaba for this one.
Really?
Yeah. How it's gonna go exactly? It's hard to call really, but I don't know if I'm thinking finish. I don't know. You see, there's something about me which thinks maybe decision, but I'm not too sure.
I think you don't see it much, but Kutalaba is also like very high ranked in Sambo as well. So we've seen Johnny Walker's grappling isn't the best, so maybe it could go that route.
I mean, it would be interesting to see if that is the case. Then I think Kutalaba decision definitely.
Yeah.
But it's just a very hard one to call. Regardless, I think it's going to be a very exciting fight.
Yeah, I can see why you do that because Johnny Walker, let's be real, he has not looked good in his recent losses. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful, but you need fundamentals in MMA, and that's something he lacks, and it's got him knocked out, and it gets him hurt a lot. Like it seems like every fight he gets hurt badly. But just by the way he's been talking, I've watched a few of his interviews, and he's sort of changed a lot in his camp. He said he's been working a lot on his defense, and he quit. I think he quit weed, and he said he was getting paranoid, and he wasn't in the right headspace for a lot of time. The THC just affected him different than a lot of these fighters because they use it a lot for recovery as well. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go Johnny Walker knockout, but I could be very wrong on this one. This one is either way. They're kind of the up and down fighters of this division, and I think both of them need a win very bad, and I think a win is very important for them because they're both guys who they've both fought the best of the best in this division. The Jamal Hills I mean, Kusleva lost to Glover Teixeira, so and Muhammad Ankalaev. So they both want to be in a position where they're fighting the best in the world on the biggest stages. And another thing, Johnny Walker is very much a crowd pleaser. Like in his first fights in the UFC, you could tell how like he feeds off the energy, and he's not fought in front of a crowd in his last 3 or 4 fights. So I'm interested to see how that affects him. So yeah, I think the first one we're split on, which is going to be good. We'll come back next week and see who got more right this week. So yeah, either way that fight could go. And this fight, obviously, both been in the UFC a while now. Irene Aldana, she's an excellent boxer. She idolizes Chavez Senior. I know Anderson Silva beat Chavez Jr., but Senior was like he went on a 50 fight unbeaten streak in boxing, won maybe even more. He was like 90-3 in professional boxing, like Mexican beast, and you can tell she idolizes him because she's got her hands on her chin and she goes forward at all times. She's got the very sort of Mexican boxing style. She's got a few submissions, a lot of knockouts, which isn't hugely common for these women's divisions. I don't want to be stuck in that because we've seen some excellent knockouts from them, but I mean, to get like a finisher, you don't see it much. And Chasson's the same. She's got a real mean streak in her. Like, she likes to damage people. So this fight's very interesting for me. I'm going to go ahead and give a prediction. I do think Irene Aldana's going to win. I think she's a better boxer. It could be interesting in the clinch, but I think Chasson doesn't use her jab much, and when she throws kicks, she kind of leaves her chin in the air. And with Aldana, if she finds your chin, she can put you out. So I'm going to go a second round knockout, and I'm also going to go a first round knockout for Johnny Walker as well, because I didn't give the round prediction for that one.
Okay, so this one, it's an interesting one. As you said, knockouts aren't a common in this division. They just aren't. It's not something which happens a lot. Obviously, we have seen some recently. And it's usually boxers who do it, funnily enough. Usually the women who are really good with their hands and that. But I think I can very much see this going either way potentially. I think that the boxing is going to be very challenging for Shaz to deal with. At the same time, I feel like Shaz and we're seeing a lot of good clinch fighting at the moment.
Yeah.
In this division, a lot of good clinch fighting. And I feel like that could be just enough to bring it to a decision.
Yeah, it could very well go the distance.
What they'll do in the clinch, who knows? But I'm gonna go with, I genuinely think so. I believe that Shaston's gonna be doing well in the clinch, but I feel like the boxing is gonna not go away. I'm gonna go Shaston loss.
Yeah,
and that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, so now we're getting into sort of the spicier end of this main card. And this one, we have obviously Big Mouth Kevin Holland on a good streak since coming to welterweight. He's fighting Daniel Rodriguez D-Rod, who I think his last fight was like August last year, so not quite a while ago he fought last. I know he had some knee problems, and he's looked excellent of recent, beating Kevin Lee in quite a dominant performance. I think that was Kevin Lee's last fight in the UFC. So it's an interesting one. He's a very dirty Thai boxer, kind of really likes to land those big shots, like rock you. He'll rock you and put you away quick. And Kevin Holland, we know he's a very good striker. The thing I don't like about Kevin Holland's chances in this fight, he kind of leaps into range at points. Like for someone who's so tall, like we were talking about earlier, he doesn't use his basic fundamentals to just keep his range. He likes to be in the pocket too. But I for this one, I'm gonna go Kevin Holland knockout because I think his defense is good enough, but I think Daniel Rodriguez gets a bit too wild when someone's putting pressure on him, and I think Kevin Holland's power is a big thing. This fight's at a catch weight. I think they're fighting at 180 pounds, so bit of a weird one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Daniel Rodriguez is the one who wanted it. Obviously, Kevin Holland just moving down to welterweight, you'd think it'd be him, but Rodriguez, maybe the time off has kind of got to him, and it's a very interesting fight because we've never seen Kevin Holland get knocked out, and I think this fight's going to be a finish either way. I can't see it going the distance, but I could be wrong with that one. What's your thoughts on this one?
So it's a hard one, really. Kevin Holland, he's got some very, very impressive knockout power, and he does like to fight a lot in the pocket and whatnot. He doesn't tend to use his range as much as he likes to, as you mentioned previously. I feel like with this one, it could potentially be a matter of either Kevin Holland, securing that knockout, or either Rodriguez going the distance with just, the flurry of the strikes he throws. He's very clean, he's very accurate, and he's very. I feel like the word bombarding, if that makes any sense. Bombardimenting. That's definitely not a word.
That's not the word.
I don't think that's ever been a
The
word.
first one you got, it's not bombardment either, it's bombarding.
Bombarding, so I did get it right correct initially.
I don't know why I said
But
bombardment.
my English is perfect. But yeah, no, as I was saying, yeah, so I feel like it could genuinely be a matter of I feel like if Kevin Holland does get in close enough, it could be a knockout. Kevin Holland it's unlikely that he will be getting knocked out. Not to say that, he is something which won't happen, and it would be interesting to see him get knocked out. But I think if it does become a matter of Rodriguez getting in the cleaner, the more certain strikes, I could potentially see it going in the direction of decision Rodriguez. And it's easy enough to say Kevin Holland knockout. I want to see. I want to see this fight with this. I want to see it be a bit of a war.
Which very well could be, because I can't see Daniel Rodriguez as a guy to go down very easy. He's talked about being 211 street fights, and obviously he fought in prison a lot. So
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of his interviews, and he grew up fighting on the streets and having these rough fights. So yeah, it's going to be a very interesting one.
I'm gonna go Rodriguez decision. That's going to be my prediction.
Yeah, so getting into co-main event, this one could hurt to watch because Tony Ferguson obviously very badly knocked out last time out against Chandler, and going up a weight class to fight Li Yang, who's one of the best knockout artists in the welterweight division, could be very dangerous to his career.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like it's an awkward one, really. It's hard to call. I feel like Li Yang, he's got some amazing knockouts. He's such a good stand-up fighter. He's accurate. He's good at working all parts of the body, using all of his strikes, and he's just so strong. Like if you look at him, he just the force he throws with. I feel like this could potentially be an issue. I mean, it's a hard one to predict. Exactly. I'm just trying to think, like, with this one, Tony Ferguson. I mean, he didn't look. He looked okay in his last fight, to be fair, and we were seeing like lots of. We were seeing him be unpredictable as you like him to see, but it does feel like he is definitely toward the last stage of his career.
And how long ago was that? For a knockout like that, you usually take about a year off.
Yeah, no, it's quite recent. It must
in the last 5 months, I reckon. 5, 6 months.
I reckon less than that.
In the last 5 or 6
in the last 5 months, exactly. And I feel like with Tony Ferguson, pairing against somebody who strikes like that, I don't know if that's really necessarily the right matchup. Yeah, he's not necessarily the top guy, but he's a guy who hits very, very hard, and a guy who is known for getting knockouts. If he hasn't got the chin, which he might not have anymore, then why is he paired up against someone like this?
Yeah.
You know, there are definitely other fighters which would maybe be more suitable, who are maybe
Dan
slightly more.
Hooker. I don't understand why that. Or Nate Diaz. Why is Nate Diaz fighting Shamaev?
That makes so much more sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, how it's gonna go exactly, I'm not too sure. I can't see Tony winning this one. I think he's gonna get KO'd again.
Mm.
I don't want to see it. I feel like they've kind of done him dirty here, but obviously he has to also agree to it. So you know,
You know what I think? I think the rear naked choke is going to be there. The Darth choke is going to be there. But is the opportunity to get Lei Yang going to be there? So I think Tony, with a lot of these submissions he's got in his career, absorbs punishment, makes it a real dirty fight, and then gets people into deep water and really drags on their neck. But I don't see Tony being able to deal with the power.
no, neither. I genuinely think it's gonna be too much. I just don't think that he's gonna be. I don't feel like this is the right fight.
No.
I really don't. I feel
That
like
being said, Tony Ferguson, second round submission, because I cannot go against him. I do not want to see him lose. In my head, this is prime Tony Ferguson, and he's going to submit him.
in your head. Well, I'm glad your head's working right today.
I don't know.
I'm sure Tony's still recovering.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah.
Actually not, because he shouldn't be fighting Lei Liang in that case.
I mean, whether he should be fighting or not right now, of course he should. But at the same time, you know, he had a savage knockout,
That was brutal.
and I feel like looking at him, he didn't look alive, and I
No.
just feel like that's such a short time to you know to just recover really. And Michael Chandler, you know, it's such a high level opponent. Lei Lang, the power he has.
Again, it's the same thing with Chandler. He can put you out of anything. He'll kick you in the head 1 second. He's knocked out so many people where he reaches with his left hand forward and just throws the straight right down the pipe. And did he knock out Ponzinibbio? Knocked out Muslim Salikov? He's knocked out so many people.
Knocking out everyone.
Yeah, literally. Except Shamaev. Before that, he's just knocking people out. So, man, if Tony wins, it would be so good. But I don't know. I can't pick against him.
I reckon they were putting together the card and they got the names mixed up.
Yeah.
So they were supposed to like move like Tony up a column and like Nate down a column, or maybe it was the other way around, or maybe it was like
They're going to give Lei Liang a rematch against Shamaev. I'd rather see that than the. Nah, I'm not going to hate the Diaz fight right now. We'll get into that now. We might as well. We're over an hour in, so we gotta get into it really. So I don't know where to get started with this one, to be honest. I'm confused about the matchmaking. I think I don't want to sound like a hater, but I think the UFC are kind of doing it to spite Nate Diaz because of all the contract negotiations, and Diaz clearly just wants to go and get that money fight against Jake Paul or somewhere else, or he's just started his own promotion, like Badass Fuckers Only or something like that. It's a weird name. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like that's a very much a Nate Diaz name.
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's a weird name. So yeah, they're kind of feeding him to the wolves. Obviously, Shamaev, I think his nickname is the Wolf as well. So
yeah.
Like, I think if we're honest, Nate Diaz is going to get chewed up in this one.
So to be fair, I was thinking this right, but if you look at who Nate Diaz says he wants to fight.
Yeah.
They thought, you know, we can't put against him, but we can put against him, and he's also pretty good.
What did he say? The only people I'd fight are Ngannou or Izzy.
Yeah, that's the thing. So I reckon they're thinking, well, we can't put against Izzy, and we can't put against Ngannou, but here's somebody who's going to smack you up.
Yeah.
And maybe that's it. I'm not too sure. Nate Diaz, he's an interesting guy. He's got a great personality. He really does, and he's great for just, you know, hyping the fight up, and just he's good for the UFC other than in his contract negotiations, obviously. But you know, he's good as a presence. He's good as a as like a. Is icon the word, or like he's good?
Yeah, he's an icon.
Yeah, he's an icon. He's an icon. But I feel like I don't want to say ambassador because he's not exactly an ambassador for good. You know,
he's a good role model.
Yeah, great role model. But no. He's a good individual for the UFC in the sense of, you know, in the sense of
he's a needle mover.
But with Nate Diaz, his fighting style is he's an okay striker. He's a good striker. He's a good striker.
Decent,
but you know,
Overrated boxing still, in my opinion, but good boxing.
I feel like with Nate Diaz, I just it's too much.
So, all right, let's not be disrespectful and give like a horrible prediction in this one. What we will end on is I'll pose a question to you. Do you think, obviously it's MMA and anything can happen, but this being a 5 round fight, obviously Shemaev kind of looked like he was slowing down against Burns, and that was only 3 rounds. We know how tough Nate is. Do you think there's, in your head, is there a way that Nate can drag this into the later rounds and maybe find a way to win this fight?
I feel like if Nate were to do this, it's going to be purely down to his toughness and purely down to stamina.
Yeah, same.
And I think that's the only way it's going to happen. He's not going to be keeping distance. He might try, but in all fairness, it's Nate Diaz. I don't think he's going to try.
He's just gonna go in there, put his middle finger up, slap the guy, see what happens. I think he's very open about. I don't think he's said he's gonna win this fight. I mean, I haven't heard him say that anywhere. So I think he's open where he's just like, I'm gonna let this up and comer come in, make his name off mine, and I'm just gonna give it everything I got. And that's a dangerous guy right there, because he's got nothing to lose. He knows if he loses this fight, what changes for Nate Diaz if he gets beat up in this fight? He gets beat up for probably like the 16th time in professional MMA. He's still one of the biggest stars to come out of the UFC, and he can still go fight at Jake Paul, because realistically, the way he loses this fight, I think he's just going to get ragdolled. I don't think Chimaev's going to stand with him, because Chimaev could beat him in the standing, but he can just beat him anywhere. In Chimaev's head, especially, he'll stand with him, then he'll take him down, and then he probably thinks he could submit Nate Diaz. So
there's no real benefit to him necessarily standing up.
No,
that's the thing. No. It's just not really super beneficial to him. I mean, obviously, you can beat him on the feet, but
I think he will stand just because he'll want to grow his star more. Obviously, if you're in an exciting, I think he wants an exciting fight. Chimaev does. I think he'll be happy if Nate Diaz can show his toughness and drag it into the deep waters. I think Chimaev's that type of guy. He's just crazy, but. Yeah, I think we're both got to go with Chimaev on this one.
I was going to go Nate Diaz 2nd-round knockout personally.
What, overhand right?
I was going to slap.
Stockton slap.
Stockton slap.
Nah, out of all seriousness,
Chimaev.
Does he finish? Do you think he can knock Nate out?
Yeah. I do. I really do. I'm gonna go 3rd-round knockout.
That's exactly what I was gonna say.
I feel like Nate's gonna be able to carry out an event. It's an interesting point that you make about it. If it were to take place on the feet, I feel like that's when Nate drags it out.
I think if Nate can get into the later rounds, I wouldn't be surprised to see him pull off some triangle choke but I don't see it. No, I don't see it.
I feel like though, looking at Nate, it's could potentially be an unfair judgment, because how he's going to turn up, we just don't know.
Yeah, and before we do the outro, we're not going to give any breakdown or anything on this fight, but I just want to know your initial thought when Anderson Silva was just announced to fight Jake Paul, because I actually do want to do a breakdown on this fight and dig into it and see who you actually think is going to win. So just what was your initial thought when you opened your phone and saw that?
I mean, it's a weird one, really, because Anderson Silva, I feel like a lot of the time when we're seeing a lot of these MMA fighters get put against boxers, and I feel like with Jake Paul, you don't call him a YouTube boxer because he's just a boxer. He's not. He's somebody he's a very good boxer.
So can Anderson still beat a boxer?
At 50 years of age?
I think Anderson can beat Jake Paul.
How old is Anderson now?
47.
47, so not quite 50. I feel like he has the technical ability to do so. I feel like what is gonna potentially impact him is just Jake Paul.
He hits so hard, doesn't
he? He hits hard. He's just so technical. Not that Anderson isn't.
No, I wouldn't say Jake Paul's so technical.
You wouldn't say so?
No. I mean, he's looked good because he's beat a lot of people who've never thrown a punch. And when he fought Tyron Woodley, he got the massive knockout, but that fight wasn't a good fight.
I feel like though with Tyron Woodley being a UFC champion, and that it's different being a UFC champion to being a boxer.
Yeah,
it's not.
But Jake didn't look that impressive either, in my opinion.
No, I just feel like when I say technical, I feel like even a lot of people don't think about it, but I feel like being able to hit really hard effectively in itself is very technical.
I mean, he's 10 times better than he should be at this point in his career, Jake Paul. He's been training for like 5 years, never boxed before that. So, I mean, I've been boxing most of my life, and he's a better boxer than I am. So,
Probably has some really, really expensive coaches though.
yeah, I mean, that's it, and it's the coaching. So, yeah, excited for that one. We'll break that down. So, thank you guys for listening. This has been Combat Chatters podcast. We're looking forward to the upcoming UFC, and I'm sure you guys are too. So that was our predictions. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube, Instagram, etc. Thanks for listening.